What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Elan Dubrovsky. Elan, how are you doing on this fine Thursday evening?
Doing great, Louis. This is exciting. My first short shift of the season. I think new me this season. Okay, I'm actually going to do short shifts when I'm on short shifts. I'm going to try my best anyways to actually keep this below less than 40 minutes, 30 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I set up, it turns out as I was putting the show list together, it's gotten a little long, but I think we'll keep things moving at a nice little clip here, and we're going to be in great shape. So let's dive right into things here. I think the headline of the day so far is Nicklas Backstrom, quote, stepping away from hockey for a time. He's still rehabbing, dealing with issues related to his previous injury. It kind of sort of looks like a soft retirement, so to speak. If this is the end of his career, obviously it's a great one to look back on. 17 seasons, 1,032 points in 1,105 games for nearly a point per game average, .93, 421 power play points as a frequent distributor for generational goal scorer Alex Ovechkin. And just really interesting to hear, so many Caps players who have sort of come out and said it's just so weird to be in the locker room and not have him there, not have him around. I mean, many of them have had him there for their entire careers. So, a bit sad, certainly a bit of a changing of the guard, as someone who really advocated to see Ryan Strome as the line one center, power play one center.
Dylan.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Did I say Ryan? Oh, yeah. Mercy. It's one of those days.
We've got two good Stromes now, so.
Yeah, you're right. But as far back as, the first couple games of the season when I was getting frustrated with Ovi, on Twitter here on the show, definitely calling for Dylan Strome to be back where he finished last season. And obviously he's been quite productive. He's probably been the best Capitals forward, for the season. So yeah, definitely sad and kind of a changing of the guard. We'll obviously keep you updated, but that was a big one. Any thoughts on, reflecting on Backstrom's career here before we head into some more news?
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing now for Backstrom is talk about is he a Hall of Famer or not? He's had an incredible career. It's the big question, the alternate reality I'd love to know is obviously Ovechkin was going to be incredible regardless, but would he have been as incredible if, let's say, in the 2006 draft, Washington passes on Nicklas Backstrom for some reason and grabs Derek Brassard, who went 6th overall, and then that becomes Ovi's center for the next 20 years. I don't know, or maybe someone else, but how many goals would Ovechkin have? We'll never know. It'd be interesting, but I that's the thing that I always think about. But yeah, it's an interesting draft. By the way, I'm looking at this 2006 draft. Jonathan Toews went 3rd, and he also is someone who's, I guess Backstrom got a couple weeks of hockey in extra on Toews, but it seems like both of them kind of ending their career the same way. Just kind of right around now, being all right, I think we're about done here. I guess did Toews officially retire? I think he just said he's taking a year off, and then he might even come back next year. So could be the same with Backstrom for all we know. That'd be a fun prop bet. Who's going to play the next NHL game between Jonathan Toews and Nick Backstrom?
Yeah, that could be really interesting. It's the old, thinking about which center he ended up with, it's kind of like the old Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan thing, were they complementary pieces or was Pippen along for the ride? I imagine that their relationship has a little bit less animosity, hopefully, over the years. All right, well, let's get back into some big news. I think the number one thing we got to start with, important enough that we are moving it from the injury section to a headline. Adam Fox, earlier this evening here, we're recording on Thursday night, Fox collided leg-to-leg with Sebastian Aho with about 5 minutes left in the first of Thursday's game and will not return. Fox obviously has been excellent with 11 points in 10 games, 9 of them coming on the power play, just crushing it on the power play for the Rangers. He should not be expected to keep shooting 20% with 3 goals on 15 shots, injury or no. And honestly, that 15 shots even is a little concerning, I feel like. That's only a shot and a half a game. So just something to sort of keep an eye on with him, but obviously not a whole lot to complain about. That's nitpicking, that's splitting hairs with how Fox's fantasy production has been so far this year. It looks like at least in the short term, immediate short term on Thursday night, Eric Gustafsson, 7% rostered on Yahoo, took over as the power play one quarterback. The other likely option for increased power play time is K'Andre Miller, who is much more widely owned, 60% in Yahoo leagues. While we wait to find out how long Fox is going to be out, and I'm sure you'll update us with whatever information we have on Sunday, or of course, you can search by player on GameDayTweets.com. Would you be looking to add Gustafson or K'Andre Miller while we figure out how long Fox is going to be gone?
I mean, K'Andre Miller should probably be rostered, like you said, in most leagues anyways, even if he's not on the top power play, like Eric Gustafson, like you said, like he's been on the top power play at least for today, but Miller has like 7 points in 10 games this season. Like he's great for hits and blocks. Actually not as great I'm looking now as he was last year, but still I think K'Andre Miller is a solid piece. But yeah, Eric Gustafson, he's someone who I feel like people may not remember. Just like last year, around the time that John Carlson got injured, Eric Gustafson was getting added all over the place in Washington, right? And he was looking pretty good. He had a really good run there with the Capitals. He ended the season with 42 points in 70 games for a 49-point pace. So not the heights of his big breakout back in Chicago, like in 2018-19, but still, I think that Eric Gustafson has the chops still when given the opportunity to get a lot of points running a power play, and that Rangers power play has a lot of great pieces. So yeah, I'd say go and grab Eric Gustafson. Obviously, you have to be able to fit him into your lineup. So, don't just like rush and grab him, because especially without knowing how long this Fox injury will be. But I think as long as Fox is out, I think it makes sense that Gustafson is on the top power play. Like I'm not surprised that he's there. And yeah, I'm bringing up the schedule now. And so for the rest of this week, the Rangers go Saturday against Minnesota on a super busy day. And then next week, the Rangers play Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. So Tuesday, Thursday are busy days. So yeah, just make sure that you can fit Gustafson in. But yeah, if you need defense, especially, I think he's definitely worth grabbing. He's even like got some points this year, even not on the top power play, right? He's got 4 points in 9 games going into today. So not chopped liver.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the time in Washington, because I did think that was kind of interesting. He is a guy who has tried it. The tweets have been coming in, not maybe looking like the classic power play one with Gustafson manning the helm, but give him some time maybe to get some practice with those guys and increase his comfort level. And I think he could be serviceable, if maybe not excellent. Would you rather, I got an off-the-cuff would you rather here. Would you rather grab Gustafson during this Fox injury when we don't know how long it's going to be? Or would you rather grab someone like Hampus Lindholm, who might be taking over for Charlie McAvoy, and we know exactly how long he's going to be out for with that 4-game suspension, with the first game coming here on Thursday?
Well, first of all, wasn't it not even Hampus Lindholm getting the top power play? I think it was Shattenkirk who's getting like that top power play for Boston. At least that was in practice or at the end of the last game. I guess Boston's beating Toronto 2-0 right now as we record. So I could take a quick look here at some power play. Oh, Boston hasn't had a power play. Well, that's I'm trying to record a show here. Why can't they be nice
Give us
to
some
us?
Data.
Give us some data. But yeah, I think that I would definitely take Eric Gustafson, because I think it just is a better suited top power play quarterback. He's done it a lot in the past and has had a lot of success. Lindholm had a bit of a run at the start of last year. But yeah, I'll take Gustafson there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And for what it's worth, Toronto did get a couple quick goals, so it's 2-2, I believe, at the end of the second, maybe. But yeah, I think, just looking at Fox's level of participation, I would think that maybe the Rangers power play is running through the blue line a little bit more. I haven't been watching a ton of them because I don't have many of them this season. But I'm with you. I think that Gustafson might be the guy here. Going from the blue shirts to the just all regular blues, we gotta address this issue. We had a question that just says, what is up with the Blues? Jordan Kyrou, in 7 games played, just 1 goal, 2 assists. Rob Thomas at least is up to 2 goals and 4 assists. He was the only goal scorer in their most recent game on Wednesday. Bushnevich in just 6 games has 1 goal and 1 assist. Shen just 1 assist. Falk just 1 assist. Crew, who I am on the record saying that I think he could still be decent, still stuck with no points.
When did you say that?
It is just really, really ugly in there. I was on a show a couple days ago. It was highlighted in the accountability channel. It was apparently the most interesting thing I said in my episode of Short Shifts was that Krug might be worth hanging on to. So that's looking like a really ugly choice. Obviously the shooting percentages are bad. The team shooting percentages are bad. Like they're not achieving what you would expect to see. But they also just might be terrible. Are we just sort of in a holding pattern until Berube maybe inevitably gets fired? Like, what do you do when you have someone like Kyrou, who's obviously a high skill player and potentially could give you 70, 80 points, even with the slow start? But it's looking kind of grim right now.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be frustrating if you have Kairu. I would be hoping for a coaching change for sure. At least with Kairu, you're seeing the shots, which is nice. 3+ shots in each of his last 4 games. So obviously, he's someone you don't just drop. And honestly, like I don't feel like I'd be so comfortable just like selling him for pennies on the dollar. Like I think I'd want to hold on. Most of the Blues, though, I think you can let go of. Definitely Torrey Krug. I'm not interested in. There were some new lines they rolled out against Colorado. Colorado's a really good team, right? Like even though they were playing, was it Prosvetov was the goalie for Colorado last game, but even still, they're a strong team. So I'm not surprised that the Blues weren't able to muster too much. We'll see what they do in their next game. But yeah, Kairu was playing with Shen and Prasad, Thomas with Buchnevich and Kasperi Kapanen. Obviously, I would prefer if they just, for fantasy purposes, just put Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kairu together, and then we could recommend to drop everybody else. It's just kind of like this kind of hurts everyone. It doesn't even seem to help anyone too much. Like I'm not going to be rushing to grab Kasperi Kapanen because he's playing with Buchnevich and Thomas. So yeah, I don't know if I've given any like actual helpful advice here, except I think I'm still feeling like what Brian said on the show on Sunday, which was like you've got those three good forwards, no defensemen. Probably Binnington is only if you're in a volume league. Binnington's looking a lot like maybe Tristan Jarry right now, of just like playing a lot but not helping you too much unless just you need the saves. So yeah, I guess that's my take on the Blues. But yeah, I wouldn't just like totally jump ship and like drop Kairu or Thomas or Buchnevich, and I think a coaching change could only help, hopefully.
I mean, Thomas is at least giving you a little bit of production. He's got about, he's shooting over 2 shots a game, which is like unheard of shooting for Robert Thomas. He's got 6 points in 8 games, so I'm not too worried about him. And you imagine that some of the other guys will kind of follow along. All right, one other little bit here we want to do before we head into our usual injuries and outjuries and hot and cold streaks. We took a look, Kevin Hebert and I, at players that were near 100% ownership in the KKUPFL, the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. And this is a league that I think, maybe is a little more tuned in. We were talking about, Andre Miller is 60% owned in Yahoo. He's in the 90s for KKUPFL. So we're a little more on the ball, I think, generally. But here are some guys who are really high ownership levels. I think a couple of them maybe because of schedule quirks. And I'll let you know about those ones. But I put together a list of 8. And we don't have to talk about all 8 of them, but I'm interested to see if you have any particular thoughts on some of these guys who are very high ownership in the KKUPFL. Do they deserve the love? Are people snoozing on some of these players who are, maybe producing unsustainably or just kind of scheduled guys? Let's take a look at them. So I've got Scott Laughton at 98%. Logan Cooley, 98%, Thomas, 98%, Robert Thomas, that is, and Jeremy Swayman, Eric Howla, and Ivan Provorov round out my 98s. And I'm happy to provide you any season-long stats that you might want for them, or it's on the card in our document here. And then we have Joel Farabee at 96% and Barrett Hayton at 94%. A really interesting one since he's getting 19 and a half minutes a game, has not scored a point yet this season, and has not managed to put any of his 25 shots across the goal line. So from this list, does anyone stand out to you as particularly interesting or exciting? Is there anyone that you think maybe is over-owned in KKUPFL or not sufficiently, or not, I shouldn't say that. There's not much wiggle room, but maybe a league or two that maybe should add these guys in?
Yeah. Can you just throw them at me one at a time? I'll just give a quick take maybe on each.
All right. So Scott Laughton, probably a scheduled guy, 98%, 0 goals, 6 assists, 27 shots, and 14 hits in 10 games.
Yeah. So Laughton was just because Philly played Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This week he's going to get dumped by a lot of teams after Friday. Like, definitely he's not someone that needs to be rostered in all leagues once Philly doesn't have a great schedule. And I know you mentioned Farabee also. Like, yes. Same thing. So, like, Laughton was even moved away from Konechny recently to get Morgan Frost back in the lineup. And I saw Tortorella wanted to put Frost in a scoring spot. So, that makes Laughton even less exciting. He's still like solid. Like, I don't think like he's a great streamer when Philly has a good schedule, because I think he's a solid, but he gets a lot of minutes. Like, I think he's a good bet to get an assist every now and then. But yeah, him, Farabee. If there were any other Flyers on your list, I'm sure a lot of them were just for the schedule there. So I would definitely say that you can let them go.
Yeah, Farabee has been wielding a bit of a hot stick lately. He's got 5 goals on 22 shots and goals in 2 of the last 3 games. So I'm maybe a little more interested in him, even though he's not getting the deployment. But I agree with you. Obviously, that's a bit of a schedule thing. All right, here's an interesting one. How about Jeremy Swayman? Now, we've spent a lot of time talking about the tandem goalies and how in a league like the Cupful, they don't carry a lot of value, but he has 4 games played, 4 wins, 4 quality starts, a 1.26 goals against average, a .957 save percentage, and a shutout. Is Jeremy Swayman the exception to the tandem goalies are bad kind of way of thinking?
I mean, look, if he's going to get 10 Cupful points per game, so if he plays half the games, think of it like 5 points per game. If you were, that's still really good for a streamer. So especially if you are also going to have to be sometimes sitting him because you have 2 other goalies, that complicates things. But if you have the open goalie spot and you're going to get all of Swayman's games and not have to sit another goalie, then I think he's definitely better than, streaming in a flyer who's going to get you 3 games like a Scott Lawton. So I think definitely a lot of people were super worried about the Bruins going into this season and thinking that maybe they're going to be like even struggling to make the playoffs now that they don't have Bergeron and Krejci. Definitely hasn't turned out that way. They've only lost once. We'll see what happens in this game against Toronto. So I think Swayman is the exception. I think that obviously you're just wanting those. It's always better when you have those weeks where he plays twice versus those weeks where he plays once. But honestly, 10 points from a streamer in a whole week isn't even too bad, even if he only plays once. Obviously, there's the risk that like he'll have a bad game once in a while, but I would take him if he was available in my division. I just I started with Jari and Carter Hart, and then at some point I added Cam Talbot. Now I just traded Jari because I had 3 goalies. I figured I only need 2 starters, and now Carter Hart is injured. And so today I had to add a goalie that I don't even like at all. I felt really gross about it, but I added Philip Grubauer just because I wanted I had an open goalie spot and my roster was filled already for all the forwards and defense on Thursday, Saturday. And Grubauer was the only guy I thought that might have a chance to play both Thursday and Saturday of the people available. I know I'm taking a negative tonight. If Swayman was out there, 100% I would have grabbed him.
Yeah, I don't know any goalie necessarily. Certainly, I didn't go, with elite goalies, so I don't know any goalie that I would be sitting if I had a chance to start Swayman. And, the nice thing is you can fit in your other goalies on times when he doesn't play. So, I think that's pretty interesting, at least until he starts to struggle a little bit. But he has been lights out so far to start the season. Hasn't had a game where he's allowed over 2 goals, although, of course, that could change here tonight. All right, let's just touch on a couple more of these guys. How about Erik Haula? 6 points in 7 games, 19 shots. He's only playing about 14.46, and he hasn't been getting much in the way of a look on the power plays. Is that a guy who deserves to be 98% owned? Is it just because he's been really hot lately?
Hot lately. New Jersey goes Friday, Sunday this week. So it makes sense why people are grabbing him just to get the games. He'll for sure also get dropped a lot. No shade against Erik Haula. He's definitely a great streamer, but not someone that needs to be held in all leagues once New Jersey has a normal schedule.
All right, and then we'll do one more guy here. We don't necessarily need to touch on everybody, but Ivan Provorov, 98% rostered in Cupful. Through 9 games, he's averaging over 23 minutes. He's got 7 assists, no goals yet. Only 10 shots, but he's got 24 blocks. That's pretty close to 3 blocks a game. So he's giving you a pretty solid floor there. Does he deserve to be in the upper echelons of ownership for defensemen throughout the Cupful, or is this just kind of a blip on the radar? He's not a guy who's getting a ton of elite fantasy deployment with Werenski back in the fold. What are you thinking about Provorov here?
No, I think in our league, he should be rostered in all divisions. I'm surprised there's a division where he's a free agent. Like, that's my opinion. I'd be curious if you disagree, but like, he's got that great floor with like all those blocks. He plays huge minutes, and clearly he's like getting some assists because he's on the ice with like the people in the more offensive roles, but he's not like a nothing. Like, he's been like a 40+ point defenseman in the past. So I think with that safe floor of blocks, I would definitely take him in like every division. Like, if you look at the defensemen available in my division right now, probably at the top is like a Jake Wallman, and I would say Jake Wallman is like the poor person's Ivan Provorov at this point in terms of a safe floor, but Provorov probably is going to get more points.
Yeah, especially I think once the Jackets kind of end a little bit of their injury bug, Not everyone's favorite player, thanks to some of the issues with diversity and inclusion over the last couple seasons. But when it comes to fantasy, it's all about the numbers on the spreadsheet. And so I think, he is a guy, and he might actually be owned in all of the KKUPFL divisions now, because Shams was saying he picked him up, and I think these numbers reflect yesterday's game. So he might be a 100% ownership guy here. All right. And then, I'll quickly shed a tear for Barrett Hayton here. He is a guy who I think is going to break through. It's just been so weird seeing all of the kind of, success from the bottom 9, for the Coyotes lately. They had that 8-1 game, and the top guys were mostly left out of the scoring enjoyment. So, Hayton will break through. He can't shoot 0% forever here.
Look, I have him on my couple team. I'm 0-3. We'll see how this week goes. But probably at some point, I'll just get frustrated and drop Barrett Hayton, and that's when he's going to go off. I'm sure of it. I've held on this far. I'm still planning on holding a bit longer. Everything looks fine. Top line, top power play with good players. That should be enough to get a point every now and then, especially when the team is scoring 6-7 goals a game sometimes. It's been... But Barrett Hayton's season has been... very much mirroring my fantasy season in couple so far. So I'm hoping we'll both turn it around.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are going to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll hit the injuries and outjuries and the hot and cold streaks. You're listening to Short Shifts. Welcome back to Short Shifts. Elan, we got to run through some of the injuries and outjuries. Quite a bit of news here. Obviously, we started with Adam Fox up at the top. A couple positive outjury bits of news. Matt Boldy is returning. Jared Spurgeon's return is on the horizon, but he's not quite ready yet. Hopefully he'll have an update for us for the Sunday show. Not a whole lot to talk about with Boldy. He should be already rostered in your division, so it'll be nice to get him back, and it'll be a boost, I think, for just about everybody. That he interacts with when he's out there on the ice. So, that's pretty good to see. Anything of note with the Boldy return, that you want to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, just to take a look at how things will shake out in the lines now. So Marcus Johansson, Joel Eriksson Ek will now have Matt Boldy back as the winger on their line. Boldy will get back on the top power play, assuming he'll, for sure, actually. I don't even need to assume. He's going to bump Marcus Johansson, who had been getting some top power play time. So it's kind of like one of these things where, is this good for Marcus Johansson? Is this bad for Marcus Johansson? I'm going to lean good. I think probably better to just get the good even strength deployment, which is where he spends most of his time. Not that Marcus Johansson needs to be rostered or talked about too much on our show, but in super deep leagues, that's just a good line. Joel Eriksson Ek and Boldy are both really awesome players. So then, your Pat Maroons or whoever was getting some extra deployment, that I was Pat Maroons on Minnesota, so now you don't have to worry about him anymore. But I think that's it. Boldy, obviously everyone's going to be really excited who drafted him to get him back on their team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anybody maybe who has one of the Minnesota goalies will be excited for a little more run support. They've been a little bit grim offensively lately, so hoping they can get it together.
Yeah, that's a good point. This could be potentially good for a Kaprizov, who hasn't been as maybe incredible as people hoped he would be with their high pick. So maybe it's if the other team is able to really focus in on the Kaprizov line, then maybe that makes it a little bit harder. So now having another weapon on another line could potentially be good for Kaprizov as well, because other teams won't be able to just load up against him all the time.
Yeah, I've definitely got my fingers crossed in that regard as a 12th round picker, and therefore a lot of us in my allied chat are Kaprizov holders. Another big one was Carter Hart's injury. He was injured on Wednesday after some contact in the crease. Tortorella called it a mid-body injury, which sounds awful. There's not a lot in my mid-body that I would like to have injured that takes me out of a game. Hart's been surprisingly good. 4 wins and 8 starts, 252 goals against average, 913 save percentage, and 63% quality starts with a shutout. Cal Peterson was called up, so it seems like it might be Urson and Peterson for the Friday-Saturday back-to-back, but obviously keep your ear to the ground in case maybe they can spare themselves the Peterson start on Saturday. Urson has been bad. He's got no quality starts, 4.91 goals against average, and just a 763 save percent. And you probably remember Peterson trying to win the crease in LA last year. That did not go well. Honestly, the best fantasy advice to take out of this might be make sure you're streaming Sabres for Friday and Kings for Saturday. because the goaltending options in Philly look pretty shaky.
Yeah, no, this is really bad. Philly definitely has been leaning on Carter Hart, and he's been really good and helped them win some games maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. And now they have really terrible goaltending. I'm not interested in either. I don't think like one of them's going to run away with the job. Like I think Ersson and Peterson are both probably going to stink, and it's going to be rough. Like it sucks. Like, you know, sometimes like I have Carter Hart, like I said, in KKUPFL. Sometimes like your goalie gets injured, so then it's like just go pick up the backup. But here it's just like, well, I just lost like every
no
start
way
now, and now there's like no one. Now I have group out.
Yep. Stay away unless you're starting skaters on the other teams that are facing them until Hart can return. Yeah. Another quick injury note, Ridley Gregg was injured in the first and did not return. Obviously another blow to the center depth for the Senators, who just are really struggling in that regard. Maybe not great for Tarasenko, since I think they've been together for a lot of it. Just something to keep an eye on. Maybe not hugely impactful for Gregg himself. But you know, maybe some ripple effects that might affect the Senators.
If you're a billionaire right now might be a good time to try to buy low on the Ottawa Senators. I think this owner is had it up to here with all this bad news for the Ottawa Senators coming out lately with losing this pick. Shane Pinto suspended. Now they've just lost Ridley Gregg, so it might be a good chance to get them for maybe a few $100 million lower than what they were just purchased for. But yeah, as far as the Sens go, like I think at this point they've got 6 like really good forwards. Now they could just run like a really awesome top 6, and then good luck to everyone else. But yeah, you've got Giroux, Stützle, and Tkachuk as one line. Then you do Tarasenko, Batherson, and Norris as another line. They don't have the depth anymore to try to make a third line with something with Ridley Gregg. Not that Ridley Gregg was so amazing, but yeah, it's looking like today they're rolling with like Matthew Joseph and Kubalik and Rourke Chartier. So yeah, that's not much to say about that. But
listen, I will say that Ridley Gregg has at times seemed quite amazing from someone who has been holding on to Batherson, and like, why can't he be more like Ridley Gregg? So there's that at least. All right, couple other quick ones. An outjury potentially on the horizon with Alex Killorn. Nearing a return, he shed his no contact jersey. The real question is, this is the $6 million man with the dime store finger, but the Ducks are not paying him for bottom 6 minutes. So who gets the boot from the top 6? You've had Troy Terry, Trevor Zegras, and Leo Carlsson, and then Ryan Strome, Frank Vetrano, and Mason McTavish. Obviously, Carlsson, as a young, hardy 18-year-old, needs all the rest he can get between games, or he'll obviously get very exhausted. So I'm looking at the list, and just the way they've treated him, he seems like maybe the guy who gets the boot. Although, why have Leo Carlsson up if you're not giving him top 6 minutes? Kind of puts us in an interesting situation with Killorn returning and some of these guys really rising. I'm thinking about Carlsson, Vetrano, Strome specifically as guys who have outperformed what they did last year. Carlsson obviously not, but do you think this shakes things up in the top 6? Like, what do you do with Killorn when he gets back?
Yeah, I think I'll definitely question your premise a little bit. I don't think it's like a guarantee that Killorn jumps right into the top 6. Like they've won, 5 in a row now or something? Like Anaheim's looking really good. These 2 lines are like, you're not going to break up this McTavish, Vetrano, and Ryan Strome line that's destroying. Like that would be insane. The top line's looking really good. When Leo Carlsson sits, maybe then, Killorn could take that top line spot instead of Adam Henrique, but I think it's fine. Like he's making a lot of money, but not to necessarily be the biggest scorer. Like maybe it's just to be like a solid piece in the lineup. Like Anaheim also has like a ton of cap space for now. I don't think or maybe it was just a dumb contract to sign. Who knows? But like I think that actually like Anaheim's looking like they could be decent. And I think Alex Killorn on the third line with like Silfverberg and Henrique, like that's not already like now we're not even having such a terrible third line. We're talking about some good depth here on this team, especially now with our guy Pavel Mintyukov really going off on D. Like they have the defensive depth here. Not too much defensive depth, but Mintyukov is a
more
really
than we're used to.
Yeah, especially if Drysdale could be healthy, that would help even more. But anyways, I'm not saying that Anaheim's like incredible, but like it's nice for the team to have Killorn back. But I don't think I'm too worried about like any of these top 6 guys getting bumped. I think the real concern is more just this whole Leo Carlsson thing is very annoying. And I just dropped him in KKUPFL because I assume he won't play Sunday based on this schedule thing. I'll be kind of annoyed now if he does play Sunday. That whole thing is very frustrating, right? How are you supposed to? Do these people realize that we're playing fantasy hockey here and that we're trying to make some strategy decisions? At least give us the schedule, if nothing else. Also, like Iceman Cometh, Eric Stevens on Twitter was like, someone tweeted at him yesterday, being like, "Is Carlson going to play today?" He was like, "Yeah, since Anaheim only plays twice this week, so he'll just play both games." And I was like, "Wait, but he plays Monday, Wednesday, Sunday. When do you start your week?" I don't even know when they announced saying that Anaheim or they're only going to play him twice a week. I need to even just understand, like, is this a Sunday to Saturday kind of week? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been very bad at some of these guesses, but I feel quite confident that Leo Carlsson, I bet, sits and Killorn goes in that spot, and then maybe we can see how things play out from there. But I appreciate you giving me some contrast here and maybe checking my way of thinking. But I'm trying to follow the money here. And yes, you are right. This is a team that has plenty of cap space, and maybe, this just helps them stay above the cap floor for a while. But this is a guy that I think they want to have be successful, to at least make the front office look good. So that's just one thing that I'm thinking about.
Right now they're winning a lot of games, so I think the front office is looking fine, right? Like maybe if they start losing a lot, then they're like, put our expensive guy on the top line.
Fair enough. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, one other one. We got a little bit of clarity on Bennett, who I know was mentioned by Shams and Jeremy on the Tuesday episode. Obviously, his leg was falling on. Paul Maurice said he's not day-to-day. It's going to be a little longer. We don't think it's as significant as the first injury. We'll see how he feels. What happens in the first 3 days will tell us how long it's going to be. That's really it. We are not through those first 3 days yet. I'm sure we'll get a big update on Sunday. But it's looking like Bennett is going to be back out for a little while. So I hope you didn't drop anyone great to get him into your lineup and off of your IR, because it looks like he's going to stay.
Interesting point. Yeah, I hope. Like, I, of course, did not have that happen. I was trying to think of how to say this without the double negative. I dropped Casey Middlestat to bring in Sam Bennett, and he's had himself a bit of a week. There goes Lewis. I'm having I'm trying to just I'm having fun chatting with you here on Short Shifts. But yeah, these injuries, this Barrett Hayton thing, the Leo Carlsson thing, it makes it very challenging. But yeah, this that Sam Bennett injury was very frustrating, having dropped someone, like you said, just to bring him in to give you a nothing game in a close week and now go on IR again. We only have 4 ads a week. Also, definitely wasn't planning to use an ad to replace Sam Bennett. Yeah, I guess the only thing I'll say is Anton Lundell hasn't gotten a point in his last couple games, but he has 4 and 5 shots. Seems like he's playing with Tkachuk and Verhaeghe, so maybe he's someone to take a look at. If it turns out Bennett's going to be out a little while, but really, it's just kind of a bummer for the Bennett managers. I don't see anyone getting like a huge increase in value, like a small increase maybe for Lundell.
Yeah, it just seems like it's kind of back to the status quo that we had previously in the season. We got a brief injection of, improvement, and glad to have him out there. But obviously, yeah, an unfortunate sequence of events to take him back out. All right, let's talk about some hot and cold streaks. And if you haven't gotten enough Ducks talk, we have years of Ducks talk to make up where we've just skipped them as an afterthought. We got to talk about Troy Terry and Pavel Mintyukov. Terry is up to 6 points in 4 games. He has 2 0-pointers, but 2 multi-pointers, including a hat trick plus an assist, including the overtime game-winning goal on Wednesday. Of course, he is lined up across from me in my particular matchup this week. It was already looking like a rough schedule loss, but with Terry going off and then a shutout for Semyon Varlamov against the listless Washington Capitals. They had a goal that got called off. It's real grim right now. But he's played 20 plus minutes in both of those multi-point games and at least 19 minutes in half his games this season. It is, another great start to a season for Troy Terry, who that's starting to become a bit of a pattern. Like, this is a guy that maybe it's worth, grabbing at the draft so that you can get a killer first half and then see, if maybe you can trade him off. You brought up Mintyukov. We're high-fiving ourselves a little bit because we've been talking about this guy. 5 assists in the last 5 games, over 50% of available power play time on ice in 4 of those 5. He's not shooting a ton. He's only got 8 shots over those 5 games, but 2 hits and 2 blocks per game during that stretch to provide you a nice floor if the points slow down. Still just 27% rostered on Yahoo. That's a guy I would definitely be looking out to go and grab while the Ducks are hot and winning games, as you mentioned. And he looks to be the guy who is solving their question of who's going to be the power play option out in Anaheim, at least for the time being.
Yeah, I guess they have Olin Zellweger, who maybe will challenge in future years, but definitely I love Mintyukov right now. I would, like, whatever I said about Provorov, I would take Mintyukov over Provorov. So if you want to make a quick ranking there. As far as Troy Terry goes, it's funny how quickly things change, right? Because before this 3-goal, 1-assist game, he only had 5 points in 9 games. And I had a lot of people messaging asking, like, what's wrong with Troy Terry? Should I drop Troy Terry? And now all of a sudden you're saying, like, oh, he's having this incredible start to the season, 9 point in 10 games. So yeah, 4-point game early on is definitely going to make a big difference. Like, Troy Terry is a stud. Like, he's been, like, last year he had 71-point pace. The year before he had 73-point pace. So I think we know he's got, like, he's really great. He takes a decent number of shots. Anaheim has a lot of off-day games, so he's really, like, a treat to have on your team. And games like this hopefully will be more plentiful now that, like I said, Anaheim's a little bit deeper. They have a good power play defenseman in Mintyukov. So yeah, I don't know. Things are starting to come together for this Ducks team. They're interesting.
Yeah, it's been kind of cool to see. They've been pretty much a fantasy afterthought for so long. It's exciting to see some changes here. All right, let's talk a little bit about Provorov with an assist on an empty net goal. As we continue to provide, updates on games that will be long over by the time you hear this episode. All right, we talked about a hot pair, a forward and a defenseman in Anaheim. Let's talk about a cold pair, a forward and a defenseman in Toronto. John Klingberg had 5 assists in 6 games to start the season, but nothing over the last 5 if you count his progress so far here on Thursday night. He's still controlling 50 to 75% of the available power play time on ice on a game-by-game basis. Are we concerned about Klingberg? Does he have a risk maybe of getting replaced? We've seen more success from Morgan Rielly, I think, over the last little set of games, although not necessarily on the power play. Or is this just something we're going to ride out? He's a defenseman. 4 games without a point, after a bunch of games with a point is just sort of what you expect. Par for the course.
I know the vibe on Twitter right now from Leafs fans is they really hate John Klingberg and they think he stinks. So I don't know, how much weight to put on that. Also, I just brought up his page on Frozen Tools and he's missing his middle couple teeth. It's a really funny picture up of him. But yeah, I guess I'd be a little bit concerned also about the fact that if you look at his ice time the last couple of games, only 18 minutes against LA. We'll see what he ends up with in this game against Boston. But I'd be a little bit concerned if he's going to be not helping at all at even strength and he becomes just a power play guy. Even if he gets 30 power play points, which is incredible, if that's all he gets, that's still not worth rostering, right? So you kind of want one of these guys. I guess it's could be a Tony DeAngelo, and he's kind of not been doing so well this year. I think he got a point today. So Klingberg, I would definitely be nervous about. And yeah, there is always that chance that Morgan Rielly gets a shot again on the power play if Toronto struggles and they need to try to shake things up somehow. So I'm definitely not super stoked on Klingberg. I think you probably want him while he's on the top power play, but I think that could change at any time. And also, if he's not going to contribute much at even strength, then there's only so much ceiling he has, even as a top power play defenseman. Also, it stinks that he barely shoots, right? 1 or 2 shots a game. His blocks are interesting. I'm 0, 4, 0, 2, 0, 2. So it kind of goes on and off with that.
It's a little schizophrenic with the blocks production there. All right, the other guy who's kind of struggling right now for the Leafs is Tyler Bertuzzi. Just 2 goals, 1 assist in 10 games. Nothing in the last 4. Getting second power play time and shooting just twice a game. Still lining up with Tavares and Nylander after he got the boot from the Matthews line in favor of Calle Jarnkrok, who has been very similar overall, although he did manage an assist tonight on a Matthews goal. Are you snoozing if you're still holding on to Baby Bert? This is a guy who should be hitting the waiver wires, don't you think?
Yeah, he's not that interesting. Unfortunately, I grabbed him actually on Thursday after the Carter Hart injury, so I figured I had an open spot. I'll take Bertuzzi in the top 6 in Toronto, but yeah, it was just a stream to get a couple games, and seems like it's not paying off very well. 3 shots today against Boston so far, but yeah, you look at Toronto and their offseason acquisitions. They signed Bertuzzi, they signed Klingberg, they signed Max Domi. They signed that guy who gets a lot of fights and penalties that I'm blanking on his name right now.
Ryan Reeves.
I wonder what Kyle. Not that Kyle Dubas is like turned out to look so great right now in Pittsburgh. I'd be curious to know what the Leafs lineup would look like if they hadn't changed GMs. Because so far none of these acquisitions seem to be making much of a difference. Whatever, it's super early. Like maybe in the end they will help the Leafs get through another playoff round, which is all that matters. Like I assume they're still going to make the playoffs. But yeah, as far as fantasy goes, none of these like usual in Toronto, none of the non-top power play players are worth rostering, I guess, except for Morgan Riley. But aside from him, that's it. And even John Klingberg on the top power play is becoming less interesting. So you sort of just have the same core valuable players as last year.
Yeah, early return's a little rough on some of those off-season guys. All right, last one here. Hot streak for Jamie Benn. And really, it's just been kind of like a season-long thing, but especially lately, 4 points in the last 2 games, including a shorthanded goal on Wednesday. He's got a point a game so far for the season. This is a bit of a mea culpa for me because on my preseason episode, I had him marked as a guy who I didn't think was going to produce the way that he did last year. That still may prove out, but at least in the early season, this has very much not been the case. He's ranked 98th overall in cupful scoring in the young season. He's shooting 20% like last year. He's a line 2 guy, but he's on an elite power play. I was thinking about Ryan Johansson because I was able to grab him off the waiver wire recently. And he reminds me of sort of like the Jamie Benn of the Avs. He's a line 2 guy, but he's the 5th guy on an elite power play. Who would you prefer between Jamie Benn and Ryan Johansson right now? Given that Johansson maybe has about an extra half shot a game, but he's not giving you the same number of hits. They got a similar shooting percentage, and obviously their kind of role being quite similar.
I mean, I think I would take Jamie Benn. Like, he's had more success recently, like last year. Obviously, it was a very different situation for Ryan Johansson, but that would be my gut feeling anyways. The interesting thing with Benn so far is he has 8 points in 9 games and no power play points. So, and he's on this great power play. So imagine if he was starting to also get in on some of those. Like, I was assuming he was going to be like mostly like just a power play guy. So if he's able to even like keep this up somewhat, like half as good, if he could be like a 50% of his games getting an even strength point and then also throw in a power play point, like all of a sudden, like once in a while, like we're talking about maybe a 70-point guy again, like he was last year. So, well, actually, he had 78 points last year, Jamie Benn. So, yeah, I think that's an easy choice for me. And plus, he's got the wing eligibility. So that also
and he was a waiver wire guy who paid off for a lot of people last season, I think. All right, well, I was trying to pull a fast one on you, but you identified exactly what I wanted to talk about was the fact that Benn has done that without producing on the power play. And I think that is the secret reason why he is so interesting and why I think he does deserve to be ranked above Ryan Johansson. Also, he's on the new team. He could potentially be the guy who gets shifted down, whereas Benn had pretty much all last year on that top power play.
Yeah, and Jay Brew in the chat here is saying he's convinced that he's benefiting from the Wyatt Johnston effect. And yeah, why not? Wyatt Johnston, like a high pedigree prospect. And maybe this is the year where he starts becoming someone like interesting in fantasy. And yeah, so it's been Johnston, Dadonov, and Benn. Dadonov's name has been in the news for not great reasons this week, as we discussed before. But yeah, Johnston up to 7 points in 9 games. So let's not also forget about him. If you missed out on Jamie Benn, whatever, he's not getting power play points anyways. You're getting the same even strength production from a Wyatt Johnston right there with him.
Yeah, like a classic Western, the grizzled veteran and the upstart newbie. It's like Mando and baby Yoda. So you love to see a combo like this. And I'm glad that it's working out for both of them. All right, Elan, we have reached the end of our show. Thank you so much for joining us here. I really appreciate you stepping in and jumping in on a short shift. Always really fun to have you here. Any thoughts before we take off here?
No, this has been a blast. Let's cue that outro music. Read us the credits.
Thanks. Yep, thanks everybody for joining us. Please give us a follow at Short Shifts KK, Brian and Elan, who's with us here tonight, at Keeping Carlson. Always recommend you follow at Game Day Lines, at Game Day Goalies, at Game Day News NHL, and at Game Day Stats NHL that Elan and Shams run. Just outstanding content all the time. And of course, if you want to find it organized really nicely, you can find it at GameDayTweets.com, including searching for tweets by player. It's so useful for doing research. Please visit that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, ShiftChart.com, Icy Data, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. John Reed is our digital media producer. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.